We have Charleston, so you've seen that there's railroads all over.
Yeah.
Pretty much anywhere you go, you're going to cross a railroad track, unless you on like the highways or whatever. But
in fact, we were delayed getting
here. I grew up with that,
yeah.
dude. I'd be like, hey, I'm going to be 10 minutes late to work. This thing is creeping by.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Hey, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share. Today's video is brought to you by Tony's Pizza and Restaurant. My wife and I eat there often. And if you're looking for some real, authentic Italian food, Tony's is where you need to be. They're located on 108 Boston Road, Springfield, Massachusetts. And their phone number is 413-732-6600. It's a great place to grab some lunch and dinner, or a great place to grab a beer after work. Thinking about that special gathering? Tony's got you covered. They have a banquet room that sits up to 70 people and a dining room that sits up to 100. Oh, by the way, if you're thinking about hosting that party at your house, Tony's got you covered. They cater as well. All around, Tony's is managed by a great family, and they care deeply about your experience. Tony's Pizza and Restaurant is highly recommended. Make sure to let them know that myPrepPlus sent you. All right, welcome to myPrepPlus, a series called Roots. Today's guest is Jordan Sanders. He is from Liberty, South Carolina.
Homegrown.
myPrepPlus, especially with our series Roots, it's very simple. Our mission is to connect people and professionals from all walks of life so we can share ideas and hopefully create new beginnings, positive beginnings. Roots is a very simple concept. We're on a journey right now across the states to capture everyone's story as to where they came from, what they're doing today, and where they see themselves going in the future. Jordan is good friends with a buddy of mine, Nick Shank, who is recovering, thankfully. He's on his way north from Miami. He's letting us use his house, him and Taz Shank, so we're grateful for them as well. Without further ado, we'll get right into it. We'll talk about your family, kind of the structure there, how you grew up, right, and kind of some of your goals as you're growing up. You can get into whatever avenues you want to talk about. What you're doing now, what brought you to the Greenville area, right? And then moving forward, where you see yourself in the future.
Yeah, I got you.
All right, so without further ado, where you came from?
So, like we started with, came from Liberty, South Carolina. Super small town. Not much going on. Lived on a dead-end street. Just grew up. It was just me and my mom when we got started with that. I was the only child for a long time, but I had grandma and grandpa always around. It was just me and my mom off the rip, and she bought her house, and she worked hard to pay the bills, working at like grocery stores, and so I spent a lot of time with her there. But whenever she was working, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. So there's Ronnie and Glenda. Those are my grandparents on my mama's side. And then also right next door to them, my great-grandmother lived in the house next door. So they own like 7 acres right there. And so it was like great-grandma and my grandparents. So I grew up kind of old, not gonna lie, using a rotary phone. Yeah, that shit's crazy.
Right on. Rotary phone, I do remember those as well.
Yeah, not many people do. Going out and about, like rotary phone, like the ones you press buttons on. I'm like, no, you got to slide the finger. But yeah, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents and my great grandmother. Man, speaking of great grandma, I was thinking about her the other day. She used to cook me up the weirdest combination of meals. It was ramen noodles and ginger snaps. And I ate that shit up. ate it up. It was so good.
Right on. No, I never heard of what do you call it? Ginger
snaps? Yeah. It's a ginger flavored cookie. They're crispy.
Okay.
A lot of times I think people eat them with like tea.
Okay,
and
I
like
got
coffee.
You. Yeah. I
ate them with the ramen noodles. I don't know what the chicken broth ginger combination was, but it really hit the spot when I was 5 or 6. Nowadays, I would expect a casserole, but
yeah. Oh my goodness, man, that's great.
Yeah. So
needless to say, your grandparents really took you in. Your mother worked hard at this point, right? She's a hard worker.
Dad was out of the picture, so it was just her, and then like my father figure was my grandfather.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Now you say great grandparents. great grandfather, great grandmother?
Just my great grandmother.
Okay.
My great grandfather had already passed before I was born.
Okay.
But yeah, so it was just her living by herself over there, and she would take me during like the days, and then like when dinner time came, both of us would walk up the driveway and go eat dinner at Nona and Pop's, which is my grandparents on my mom's side.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it was a very, very like tight knit, a lot of like love surrounding me, even with the single mom. So I didn't feel like at all like left alone. I was always with mom or grandma, grandpa. So it was very, very tight knit. One big thing about this area here is like it's a huge. There's churches everywhere, but there's churches everywhere around here.
We've noticed that
everywhere. You drive a mile and a half, you're seeing at least one or two, and there's usually across the street from each other like some biblical gang war.
That's one thing we noticed for sure.
Yeah. And usually those churches came from the same place. They just like got into an argument about what color the carpets were supposed to be.
Oh my
And
goodness.
they're like, all right, screw it, we're splitting. We're gonna start our own church. And but yeah, so huge biblical background. When it comes to schooling, I went from K4 through 9th grade, all the way through in like private Southern Baptist Christian schools. That's why I'm a silly goose. I swear to God, and that's why I can get along with a lot of people, because I grew up with the same like 14, 15 kids every class period, every day.
Wow.
So I had to learn to love them to some aspects.
They almost became your siblings.
Oh my God. Yeah, I didn't think about that for a long time.
Yeah.
And then it dawned on me. I was like, oh my God, no wonder I hated them so much and loved them at the same time.
Now let's go. So describe the scenery, your hometown. Woodsy, water.
So more hilly. Not a lot of like. There's no like standing water or anything. Like no big like ponds or lakes, except if you go into the country. But it's like if you go anywhere like 5 minutes outside of where I actually grew up in like my house, it's just all like pastures and like farmland. Lots of woods. There's trees everywhere.
Wow.
So yeah, like at my grandparents' house, I could go out back on the 5 acres and it's just all woods, with like a couple trails that my grandfather had cut through them.
That's dope.
It's a very big like industrial town. So like back when like textile mills were a thing, they're all shut down now, but like it was a huge textile mill town. We had like Mill Hill, like all that. Big like blue collar area where everyone's working like factory jobs or mill jobs. Since it's transitioned to like modern day, it's a lot of new factories. So like on the road next to my grandparents' house, literally it's just like, probably if you drive down there, it's just like a commerce park of probably like 15, 20 different factories making stuff from like golf balls all the way to like tractors.
And this is active still today?
Active, yeah. So all of that's there. It's like the Pickens County Commerce Park. It's just when they were building it, I used to, that's where I learned how to drive.
Yeah.
It was driving down that. It was all cleared off for the factories to be built, but they weren't there yet.
Yeah.
So I was just going down this long road with no side like cutoffs or anything. Grandfather's teaching me how to drive. He's like, I told you to take a left right here.
That's great.
Yeah, man. So yeah, that's the scenery. It's just once you get into the main downtown, it's just like maybe 4 or 5 streets of like all locally owned. Like it wasn't like Subway or anything. The best restaurant in town was Liberty Bell, and it's in Liberty, South Carolina. I'm like, that was original.
Now, what did they make there?
It was like your basic like burger shop. Go in there, get burgers, some like onion rings, French fries.
Yeah.
There was always some randomly too delicious for the location Mexican restaurant, and they just kind of rotated through. They didn't do enough business, but they made great food, and then another Mexican restaurant would come in and take over that same spot.
Wow.
So we got new Mexican restaurants every 3 years.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So now let me ask you, with like digital transformation and technology, when do you think that actually came into your life?
Okay, first memory that popped up was when analog TVs went to the digital converter box, and how upset my grandfather was about it. That's probably the first time that like digital really like transitioned for me.
Wow.
Was going under crawl space and running lines and stuff, and using a TV remote to flip the channels instead of hopping up and moving the rabbit ears and switching through.
And what year was this, by the way?
Year was this? I was probably
Time
7 or 8. So probably 2003, 2004, probably when like the digital converter box really hit the market, and that's when, because like I said, growing up with my grandparents, he's always been super tech savvy, I will say. So there was just one desktop that was old as dirt. That like I wanted to play a game, I used a floppy disk. Like that was that was where I spent a lot of my time. And then like also he had a Super Nintendo. We had one in the basement, so that was, I mean, not so much a gamer anymore, but there were years there where I would sit and play. But
wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's great. Well, let me kind of, we've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of guests as well, and talking through this digital technology, and it's funny because an older couple that we spoke to, they were talking about how to make their black and white TV colored, they just had 3 different colors, like a film that went over the top of the screen, right?
Yeah.
And then that made it a colored TV, right? And they had 3 channels, right? And this was, God, I don't remember what they said, the 60s, 50s, right? And then we had another guest who was talking about around this time frame, right? Which is interesting, right? So in 2004, this is when the beta iPhone was just coming out, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just so interesting because, like, for most of the folks in the country, they think when a technology comes out, when it gets introduced, let's just quote unquote the United States, they think that it's across the board. Everyone
gets like adopted all at the same time.
Exactly, right? And what's funny is, like, you're describing your scenario in the early 2000s where you're just now going from an analog television set to a digital television set.
The only reason we did that was because it was like, okay, analog TV is not going to be around anymore.
Yeah.
You have to do digital. So that was like the cutoff was in like 6 months. So he made the change.
And you were kind of forced to adopt at this point. Otherwise, you could always say, hey, I'm good, I don't want technology anymore. Yeah. And, so it's interesting. All right, so now explain where your siblings come into play.
So my older brother is 7 years older than me. So he's 31 right now. My younger brother is 7 years younger than me. So older brother's my stepbrother. Okay. So earlier, I don't think I mentioned it, but didn't have a dad in the picture, so just mom. But so my mom and my dad met in a bowling alley and fell in love. Wow. And so Josh came in, which is my older brother. He came in first. So I was the only child, and when I tell you, I was so excited to have a brother. Like I know he probably hated. I know he actually hated me for the first 6 years because I followed him around everywhere. Yeah. Everywhere. Josh, you want to go play basketball? He's like, no, not again, not again. Yeah, he came into the picture. He was just, I was like 5 years old when he came into the picture because he had just turned 12. That was the first birthday that I celebrated with him. So he came along like around that time and kept to himself. It was we have a much better relationship now that we're older because 7 years is a long time, man. It's hard to relate to things where I haven't experienced any of what you've experienced yet. But we had our good times. We played Madden. He whooped my ass in Need for Speed all the time. Yeah, that brought him joy. He stopped playing when I started beating him, but that's another story. Younger brother came along. So my mom and my stepdad, which I'm just gonna call him Dad from here on out because that is him. Mom and Dad, that was their only child together. Josh and my stepdad came from California. And so Brett got custody of him. He came in. And then, so 7 years later, my younger brother comes along. His name's Noah, and he's just about to graduate high school. I still remember bottle feeding him and changing his diapers. So this is a come to Jesus moment. Wow. Yeah. It's weird, man. It's weird. He got his graduation party coming up. Proud of that little booger.
Now, where are they at right now, your older brother and younger brother?
So older brother, we're all still local. First of all, like I said, Noah's about to graduate high school. He's my younger brother. That wouldn't make sense if it was my older brother. Yeah. We'd be like, wow, he's failed a few times. But yeah, so he's about 45 minutes down the road right now. Still living with mom. Looking to do like some trade school. Not sure. He's into welding. I don't know what his actual game plan is. My older brother is doing is working his way up in a landscaping company, and doing well for himself. He's got 2 little kiddos, my nephews, and he's got a fiance, whom I all love very much.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, okay, so his fiance had her first kid before she was with Josh, and the day I found out his name was one of the happiest days of my life, and I continue to give Josh shit for it. His name is Jordan. So I'm like, first time I saw him after I found out, I was like, Josh. I was like, dude, I knew you loved me, but like that much? He's like, what? I just give him the biggest hug. I'm like, you named your son after me. And he's like, fuck off, get away from me. Oh my God. I still give him crap for it all the time. I'm like, Noah, you know I'm his favorite brother, right? He named his son after me. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you, bud.
No, did he really name his son after you?
No, it was his fiance had the kid first, so she named him. I just give him crap for it.
I got you. So it's a pure coincidence.
Yes.
I got you.
One that I have taken full advantage of.
Great. So you guys are tight, pretty much. You and your brothers.
We're tight in the way, like when we're together, we enjoy each other's time, but we're not tight in the way where we hang out all the time. It's like we'll talk on the phone here and there.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's kind of like distanced. Like, even though we live close together, we all going through our own like kind of walks of life. So it's not like we're going out. It's not like me and Josh are going out for beers every weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like every once in a while we've done like a camping trip, just like a brothers thing before, but not much else. It's usually we just get together at like family outings.
So what eventually made you say, so you graduated high school, we got a little bit of background about your brothers. Your mother eventually met Brett, who you call your father.
Yes.
Brett brought along his son from California, Josh.
Yes.
And then your younger brother, Noah, came along 7 years. He's 7 years younger, so a handful of years after they got married. Okay, so now Noah's about to graduate high school. Josh, right? Josh is in your old hometown. Yeah,
he's still pretty local.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your mother and who you call dad now are still back in your hometown.
Yeah.
And your grandparents, are they still in the picture? Or?
They are.
Okay,
cool. They're still in the same house. My great grandmother's not in the picture anymore, but they still own that house. They own all that property. And my grandparents still live in the house they lived in then too. Wow. My grandfather built I would say 70% of that house by hand, like from the foundation up. Wow. So he's put a lot of work into it. I built a whole sunroom. When my great grandmother was like ailing, she had to move in with them. He built an entire wing onto the back of his house just so that she didn't have to go up and down the stairs. I was like, and the only thing he didn't do was lay the tile and sponge the ceiling. And every time I think about that, it makes me feel bad. I'm like, I just had to look up a YouTube video on how to fix the sink. And you just ran electrical wiring, built the foundation on everything. I'm like, I got work to do.
Yeah, no, that's a generation of talent. Across the board for sure. And hopefully we can learn to take some of those talents and grow from them in time, right? What impresses me about this area is that manufacturing is still big. Yeah. Which means a lot to me because you get to see the works of your hands. Yeah. And I think that's important because parts of the country so far, there's a very drastic shift away from manufacturing, straight into technology. Right. And we were listening to a podcast a couple weeks ago, and the group was talking about how do you quantify this digital world? For instance, right? In a manufacturing setting, there's process improvements. You can improve your process. You can improve how things are put together, and ultimately from raw materials through the assembly line to finally your final product, right? Yeah. And you can measure that. There's metrics behind it to improve how you finally get to a product at the other end. Right. But on the digital side, there's really no process to show, some quantitative measure, right?
There's no hands-on experience to find what would make it easier.
Yeah, and it's hard to say, okay, I analyzed, 500 line items, of data. Okay, you did that, but I mean, someone else may have done something similar, but now you have columns of data. Now, how does that, are you more efficient, with 3 columns. So the point is it's not defined.
Yeah.
And you go back down here in South Carolina, and what's impressing us so far is manufacturing is still prevalent. That is what's huge, and it means a lot to us. Yeah.
Pretty much anywhere you go, you're going to cross a railroad track, unless you on like the highways or whatever. But
in fact, we were delayed getting
yeah, I grew up with that,
Yeah.
dude. I'd be like, hey, I'm going to be 10 minutes late to work. This thing is creeping by.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we push goods like from Charleston, which is the biggest seaport on the East Coast, just pushing goods all the time. So trains are always rolling through with like 150 cars just loaded up.
Yeah. And BMW's in this area, General Electric,
Michelin,
yeah.
Boeing's in South Carolina, but not right here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, so okay, great. So we talked about kind of where you came from. Now, what gave you the push to come in this direction? And right now we're in Greensville, South Carolina.
So I went to college, first of all, and when I got back, I went for like a year and a half, and was spending a lot of money on tuition, and realized that I didn't want to sit behind a computer all day every day, because I enjoyed talking a little too much, and I was doing food service at the time. So when I dropped college, I came back home and kind of struck out on my own, like at 18. And went directly into the FBI, which I like to call it the FBI because it's the food and beverage industry. So that's where long story short, how I ended up in Greenville was just food and beverage. So worked at like a steakhouse for forever, like working my way up, getting the experience, and for like a year and a half, 2 years, I was working in Greenville, which is where we are now. At a restaurant that I still work at. I'm bartending, but it was like a 30-minute commute every day. So once lease was up at my old apartment, I decided to move to Taylor's, and Sam had an opening right around that time. So it just all worked out, and now it's a 10-minute drive instead of 30.
Yeah.
Rent's a little higher, I will say that, but it's a great area. I love where we're at now. And I love bartending. I do. I like to meet new people all the time. I also like to drink alcohol, so it's nice to be around and learn more about it. Yeah.
Responsibly.
Working on it.
We should add.
Mm-hmm.
Responsibly.
Absolutely. Very responsibly. But
okay. Now, okay, so that's interesting. So the FBI, as you quote it, the food and beverage industry ultimately pushed you into this direction. And you mentioned kind of the bar scene. The downtown Greenville area is actually really impressive.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like one of the top, I think it's top 3 downtowns in the United States from like People magazine or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's been on the map for a while, but it's just growing exponentially.
It's impressive. The people are friendly in this area, and there's still customs and courtesies, which we appreciate.
Yeah.
And, there's genuineness in the conversations as well. Authenticity is something else we're fighting for in this series called Roots.
Right.
And so we appreciate that down here.
Yeah, there is a genuine aspect, because like the people that are from here, get raised with Southern hospitality, and like that's a word that's thrown out a lot, but it really is a real thing. Everywhere you go, like it's very, very rare for you to get like turned away from a conversation or something. They're gonna say words like, "Hey, how are you?" Whether they want to know or not, they're gonna open the door for you and give you a seat at their table if you needed one.
Yeah.
It's good people around here. And Greenville itself is just like such a big growing place. It's like also very progressive for South Carolina in general. So I think that's what's bringing a lot of people to Greenville in particular, or the upstate of South Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah, we've noticed a difference. You wouldn't think. I mean, it's almost in some areas we've visited so far. It's almost like I want to say this carefully, a California feel, and as far as like the property structures, right?
Okay.
Some of the neighborhoods, it feels like you're driving through the suburbs of some of California, right?
Okay.
But 15 minutes away, you're in what I would think of traditional South Carolina. Woods, water.
It's a quick transition.
Yeah, and that's what's it's nice. You could literally, in the downtown area, I mean, you could be in an apartment complex, a condominium type deal, overlooking this beautiful scenery with some beautiful buildings.
Yeah.
Right? And then 10, 15 minutes literally in any direction, you're kind of in a wood setting, and it's peaceful.
And then 45 minutes outside of Greenville, you've got, like, you're getting into the Smokies, and you got 3 huge lakes, like, within an hour drive. Great hiking. It's nice, man. 3.5 hours, you can be at the beach too.
Yeah.
So it's a good little spot. Got Atlanta right down south. You got
Charleston.
Yeah, Charleston, and you go a little north, you can go to Asheville. I mean, it's a nice little spot to kind of, like, if you want to get out of town for a weekend trip, it's not going to take you that much driving.
It's so peaceful here.
Mm.
Yeah. So I could see why you were drawn to this area. So you've been in the FBI food and beverage industry since really your early
teens.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think 16 was 15. I had like a fry cook job. They put me on the fryer at 15, but 16 is when I really started like hosting, and then just kind of I'm good at it, and I'd like to do something more in the future. But I think like bartending in particular, I think I'll always have a shift or two somewhere. Yeah. It's just so I enjoy it.
Hey everyone, don't forget to subscribe, like, share.